to make a couple of earrings with this wonderful material, which is precious metal clay. This is a product from Japan, and it's relatively new in this country. It's actually relatively new in Japan. As you can see, this is clay, but it's actually silver clay. What they do is they take silver and grind it to almost talcum powder consistency or even smaller, and then they put some organic binders and some water, and they come up with the clay. The wonderful thing about this is that once it is formed, it dries, it's fired in a kiln, and there are different temperatures for different types of PMC. And when it comes out of the kiln, it is silver, such as this. This is all silver. It needs to be polished. This has already been polished, but so this is a material that almost anybody can work with. The tools are very simple. A piece of PVC pipe for a roller, and we have just a needle tool for cutting. Because I roll it, I need to use some sort of an even thickness, and you can do many things. This is a mat, and this is equivalent to about 4 playing cards thick, and that's what I use the most. So because it's clay, you need to take care of a few things. This is, you have to put a little bit of water, because as you play with it, it dries, and you want it to be pretty pliable. And also, you have to always make sure that when you're not working with it, it's covered so that it doesn't dehydrate. So initially, you have to also use some, I use olive oil, you can use Badger Balm, a cream-like thing, so that the clay does not stick to your work surface. This is just plastic, and I put it on. Also oil a little bit the rolling pin, and you have to figure out about how thick you want. I want my pieces to be about this thick, which is the mat. Because it's clay, it lends itself to texture, and that is what I consider the most wonderful part about this, because you can make the same shape with different textures and you come out with a totally different kind of thing. So roll away. Now that's the clay. Now I want some texture. This is one of the things. This is a tearaway technique from one of the artists. So I put this, and we're going to get a very beautiful, subtle texture on this. And there it is. There's the texture. So now I want to cut the shapes. I'm going to make some round earrings. So I use a template. Because this will shrink, it's clay and it has water and it has binders, this will shrink about 12%. So I more or less, it depends what I'm making. I have to keep that in mind, the shrinkage. So I cut. The 2 circles. This will be 1 inch, and that'll be for earrings. Take it away, wrap it up, and put it away for a while. So now I flatten a little bit the edges that curl up in cutting. Then I take another very high-tech tool, which is a piece of a coffee stirrer, and this helps me to put the holes, to put the wires for the earrings when it's all done. Fortunately, because this is round, I can just more or less eye it. And of course, with experience, you know where you're putting it. Now, I want to give it a little bit of a shape. So when it dries. I don't want it to be flat. This little thing didn't come out, but that's okay. I can just push it out. There. So this is a dowel with a plastic, and I'm putting it on it so that when it dries, it has this shape. Here I have to make sure that it is right. And when it dries, it will have this shape. And I put it to dry. But to dry, I'll just, for the time being, I'll just put it here. But I have a dehydrator where I will put this later. How I discovered PMC, I had retired from teaching Spanish. I taught Spanish for 28 and a half years in a high school, not too far from here, and I loved teaching Spanish, but time came when I decided time to do something else. So I retired, but I really did not have any plans about what I was going to do. So for about a year and a half, I traveled, went back to my native Ecuador for long visits, which I could not do before. I spent time with my parents in New Mexico, where I used to live before I came to Brockport. And I love New Mexico because of the culture and the art. But then after a while, my husband and I went to London, and that was a wonderful trip. We went to Mexico, that was another wonderful trip. And I decided I was not going to be able to travel all the time. I had to find something to do. And absolutely by accident, I found I got the museum from Rochester sent me the schedule of classes, and they were going to have classes in PMC, precious metal clay. I had never heard of that, precious metal clay. And it said, make your own jewelry in 6 hours. It was a very small amount of investment on time, and the cost of the class was also very small. And I decided it was 2 hours, 3 Saturday mornings, and I decided, well, I'm not investing anything on this. It's not for the rest of my life. So I took those 6 hours and was absolutely hooked. It was an obsession. I could not stop making jewelry. And so when I finished that class, I continued making and taking it, because you have to, this is clay, you have to fire it in a kiln. I didn't have a kiln. So my teacher told me that I could bring and I could fire in her house. So I continued doing that. And finally, one day I decided I can't continue doing this because I can't afford it. How many pairs of earrings can I wear? How many necklaces can I wear? So a friend of mine said, well, don't stop doing, why don't you have a sale of your jewelry? And I thought, who's going to buy my jewelry? Well, I had a sale and I was absolutely flabbergasted, because before the sale was supposed to be from 1 to 4. By 3 o'clock I had nothing to sell. That also told me that I was charging too little, but that was okay. It was a great beginning. And I've been making jewelry ever since, and now I'm very happy that I teach this jewelry making at the Memorial Art Gallery. And more people are finding out about this. It is so easy to do. It's playing with clay. All you have to do is have your idea where you're going with it. But because it is clay, you can lump it again. If you don't like what you came out with, you can lump it again and start all over. And as for firing it, I eventually bought my own kiln and I fire it right here. What I do is I finish making as much as I can, several pieces, and fire it. And it takes, depending on the kind of silver clay that you use, it could take 2 hours, it could take 10 minutes. So I usually fire, because I use the 3 types of PMC available, and they have different firing schedules, but they can all be fired for the longest period of time at the highest temperature, which is what is needed with the basic original PMC. So I fire everything at that. And I sell. I love to wear my own jewelry. I don't have anything on now because I have to take it off, but here are my rings. This is what I usually wear a lot. This one, this has a fun story, and I'll tell you in a minute. And this one, and I always wear my bracelet. And of course, I always wear earrings. So whenever I go, people ask me, where did I get my jewelry? And that's what gets me into galleries. That's what gets me to sell to people. And a wonderful red color. And that's what we want. And I absolutely love the alchemy of this whole thing. In order to get a very, very mirror shine, you can use different things. This I can oxidize and it'll bring up more of the texture. But what I actually want to do with this is add some gold. I come from a family of artists and musicians on my mother's side. And I got a job teaching Spanish for the Peace Corps in Brockport. I had never heard of Brockport, had no idea where it was, and I came for the summer. At the same time, in this Peace Corps training center, this young man, Dr. Herbert Fink, was a professor in psychology, but also teaching Peace Corps at Psych. So that's how we met. And I came back after we finished the summer. I went back to Albuquerque to teach at a girls' prep school, but that was short-lived. We got married in November, and I moved to Albuquerque, to Brockport. I always say, had I known the winters, I never would have left New Mexico. I go back to New Mexico. My heart really is in Quito, in Ecuador to begin with. And then what's left is in New Mexico, especially in the winters. I really do not like winters here. So I go back to New Mexico. It's the culture, the food, the people that attract me a lot. And I think that that's where I'm inspired in my art, in my jewelry making. A lot of it has to do with my roots. I always I'm always looking at what the indigenous people of Ecuador wear. I'm wearing a blouse that they would be wearing. I like the jewelry that they wear. And so a lot of my jewelry looks and resembles that. I go back to Ecuador a lot, and I'm always looking. I love to go to the Indian markets and look at the beads and look at the shapes, the colors, the things that they have there. That's really what appeals to me. And I had a wonderful experience just a month ago when I was visiting, and my son came for 12 days. And all he wanted to do was to walk around the old city of Quito. And when I insisted that we should go to museums, he had been to Quito before, he said, why would I want to look at how they used to be when I can walk down the street and see the variety of faces, the variety of hats, the variety of embroidery. And that's really what is so beautiful about where I come from.
My parents were both teachers, and I always wanted to be a teacher. One of the reasons that my father made sure that I came to the United States to study is because he wanted me not to be a teacher, because he knew the life of a teacher was very difficult. But that's what I wanted to be. And when I didn't know to teach what. And when I was in St. Louis, and after I had worked for a while and decided to go back to school, I went to Harris Teachers College, and there was a teacher there. She was wonderful. She was an older lady, and she taught Spanish. And what she did in her Spanish classes amazed me. Her Spanish was not so great, but the activities and the love that she instilled in her students was amazing. And then I decided that's what I want to do. I want to be a Spanish teacher and be like this teacher. So I got my degree in New Mexico to teach French and Spanish. And I came back after I got married, and I got a job at Hilton High School, a small town not too far from here. And I taught Spanish for 28 and a half years. And after 28 and a half years, I decided that was it. I did not want to do that anymore. But the teacher is in me. And so after I retired and I started to do jewelry, I still went and taught some Spanish at the college. And at the University of Rochester, I was in charge of the student teachers. And but I did not really want that kind of a schedule anymore. But I'm a teacher, so I teach jewelry here in my house, and I love it. And I teach at the Memorial Art Gallery, jewelry making, working strictly with PMC. And it's wonderful. I really enjoy that. Sometimes I think why did I accept that job? I don't want to do it. When I get in front of the class, I come to life.